Howdy bowdy, Riffers. This is David Sanchez, and this is episode 67 of the Riffs or Die podcast for March 2022. Did I sound like a toy gun? March 2022. Excuse me. This is a good one here. Got an awesome interview with a buddy of mine named Jarvis Leatherby, who plays in a killer band called Night Demon. They've got a new release that's going to be coming out later this week, so make sure you check that out. Listen to the full interview. There's a lot of good stuff in here. He's got some great wisdom to share at the end, so make sure you stick around till the end. If y'all want to support the podcast beyond listening, you can share it with your friends and family. You can also rate the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on YouTube, give that thing a like, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And if you want to support the show financially, you can go to riffsordie.com and pick up some merchandise. There's a lot of cool stuff in there, including No Karate in the Pit shirts and stickers and pins, and Think It's Not Illegal Yet. Not illegal yet. T-shirts and stickers and pins and all kinds of good stuff in there. Lots of things with skeletons on them. So if you're feeling bonerific, get to riffsordie.com and pick up some merch. And if that's not enough for you, and you want to support and have access to the Zoom hangouts that we do every month, there's another one happening this weekend. And the only way you're going to get access to that is by going to patreon.com/riffsordie. Go on Patreon and sign up at the $10 level or higher, and you will have access to all the Zoom hangouts that we do every month. So come on down. Looking forward to doing that again this weekend. So I didn't put out a podcast last week. I had some family in town. My little brother from Arizona was here. Had a lot of fun watching a lot of movies with him. Man, I think my favorite movie that we watched was Black Dynamite. If you haven't seen that movie, you should definitely watch it. It was funny as fuck. It was really good. Black Dynamite. I've been wanting to watch it for a long time, and I've been told by many, many people that I would love it. And everyone that ever said that to me was absolutely correct. I did love it. So I don't have a musical suggestion for this week outside of Night Demon. That one's obvious. But my movie suggestion is Black Dynamite. Go peep that one. This is a long-winded way to get to the point of the story, but the moral of the story is no podcast came out last week. So what's going to happen is this week we're going to have this one, and then we're going to have another one coming out on Friday, I believe. So you're going to get 2 podcasts this week, and then if you want to join for the Zoom hangout, that's this weekend, you got to go to Patreon and sign up for that. But 2 podcasts coming at you this week to make up for the lack of the one last week. Sound all right? All right. Well, let's get into it. Jarvis is a guitar player, bass player, vocalist, owner of a record label, and just all-around cool, chill dude. I think you're going to like this conversation. Ladies and gents, please welcome Mr. Jarvis Leatherby. Well, I'm stoked to have you on the podcast, and I know that you're a podcaster yourself.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. My band Night Demon does have a podcast called the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I actually don't host it myself. It's hosted and curated by a fan of the band, and it's kind of more like it's more of a journalistic kind of look into the band, and it's put together with a lot of different people that surround the band, whether that's fans, some of our road crew, people that work at labels, agencies, just other bands, everybody that surrounds the Night Demon story. So every week we have a different kind of topic that we talk about the history of the band and stuff like that. So
that's really cool, awesome. Actually. Interesting idea.
It's a lot of work.
I bet. Yeah, I believe me, I know. So if you want to do a swap cast out of this one and make things a little bit easier, feel free. I don't care if you guys post this up on your end.
That would actually be really fucking cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So feel free this whole time to fire questions my way too.
Great.
2-way conversation. I'm not here to grill you, but I do have questions for you.
Sure. Okay.
So you play in Night Demon. You also play in Sirith Ungol, and you own a record label called Iron Grip Records. Am I correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Well, Night Demon, for people that are listening that are unfamiliar, Fucking awesome band. Sounds like old school heavy metal for fans of Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Motorhead, old Metallica, Angel Witch, that kind of vibe. Is Angel Witch a big influence?
Big time, yeah. Especially that first record.
That's all you really need, right?
Yeah. I do. The last two albums that they did are actually pretty good.
They've got a lot of good records. Even that Resurrection one had some weirdo stuff on it, but it has some really cool songs on it.
Yeah, there's some stuff, but yeah, I would definitely, that first album is classic. It's untouchable, and that I think that just the sound of that record and, even some of the vocal stylings and harmonies, like kind of, they had pretty big influence on me as well as Diamond Head and Jaguar. Those were like the three new wave of British heavy metal bands that I'd say influenced me personally the most musically, besides Iron Maiden. So I would definitely say that, and it's in the past year since Night Demon has been around, we've gotten an opportunity to play quite a few times with Angel Witch and kind of became close with those guys. So it's all come full circle. It's one of those things,
That's way cool. Yeah, so I'm familiar with Diamond Head. I know a bunch of their songs, but I don't know Jaguar. I've never heard that band.
They're fucking sick. And actually, it's funny I mentioned this, but I'm actually their live vocalist. So I started singing with them in 2018. But they're an old school band from Bristol, England. And they put out an album in the early 80s called Power Games that was pretty popular. And before that, they had an EP with a song called Backstreet Woman and another song called Axe Crazy. So, they're one of like the Lars Ulrich, like one of his favorite bands. And the vocal style, I guess, it's very melodic and similar to Diamond Head in that way. But it's like Jaguar was one of the first bands to play kind of faster. So I think you would actually really dig it. I highly recommend checking them out. They're one of the big three for me, I guess, besides, your obvious Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, those were my gateways into this stuff,
Yeah. You guys remind me a lot of amalgamation of all those things. You guys play fast and heavy, and there's cool guitar harmonies and good vocal melodies, and it's awesome. I love your band, and I've seen you guys a few times, and we played together at Ozfest, and ever since you guys first... Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, one of our very first shows we played with you guys, and you guys came to Orange County. We played with you guys at the Constellation Room. I think that was like our third ever gig, and that was really fucking awesome, because that's when I was really, kind of like our generation, the younger generation of kind of, I guess, next gen heavy metal was coming out and actually starting to do things where people were starting to take it seriously, and not just be like, oh, these guys are just kids, we're not going to do anything for them,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been definitely a good like kind of last decade, kind of watching each other, continue to do things. And then, two bands ended up on the same record label together. Like, I don't know if that means anything these days, but, when I was growing up, it was like record labels were kind of like a gang, and like the bands had camaraderie and they were like-minded bands. But, you guys are one of the bands that I do like on our label. So
likewise.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about that too. So your band is on Century Media. Night Demon is on Century Media, but you have your own record label. Do you have any intention of eventually releasing your own stuff, or how does that work? What made you want to start your own record label?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that I manage 5 other bands, and I have for years. So with those bands, a couple of them are like old school legacy acts that have been around for fucking decades. The other ones are newer bands that are very successful. But the thing that all those bands have in common, and as well as Night Demon, is we all have records that we actually own the masters and the publishing to. So, a lot of our more popular records, I guess you would say, or better selling records are are still tied up in deals with bigger labels,
Mm-hmm.
but all of us own some of our own catalog. So the goal of the record label was not for me to go out and try and discover new talent and compete with anybody else. It's just for the simple fact of, like, look, we own a lot of our own music, and we want to be able to put this out without having to do any more licensing deals with these bedroom labels that, essentially you just get 50 or 100 LPs at the end of the day, and they sell fucking 900 or 2,000, and it's like, well, I have no problem just making this ourselves. It's not like these labels are doing any kind of extra promo to push the band or push that release. They're basically just selling catalog, which is what people want. And especially when the stuff's out of print, and the more new records you put out, your back catalog grows and becomes more popular, especially now with the digital streaming platforms. You can have all that stuff out there. And the other thing I learned too is, even with Spotify and Apple Music and shit like this, streaming does pay if you own the masters. So the label makes a good amount of money off Spotify plays and YouTube plays and stuff like that. But, if you don't own the rights to the music, that pie gets split in a lot of different ways before you see anything. And that's why those royalty rates are so low. I still think that they could be better. They should be better, but it's not, if you own the music, it's not what people say it is. It's not the 1/1,000,000th of a penny per play. It's quite a bit more than that. So that's one misconception that a lot of people have.
Yeah, so every band that's on your label owns their own masters.
Of certain demos or certain albums, not all the records.
Okay, got it. And is that the only stuff that you put out? The stuff where they own it outright?
That's pretty much the only stuff I put out. The other stuff I do are just like, I've been fortunate enough to license some of my favorite albums of all time. Like we talked about this First Angel Witch record or Jaguar's Power Games. I've licensed those titles and reissued those just because I love the music, and
of course, yeah.
And I want to see a new vinyl version or a cassette version that hasn't been out or something, or a deluxe CD version. And I do that stuff all the time. But I'm starting to slow down more with that and focus more on just doing stuff for my bands on this label. And, the other thing is, like, I have the same distribution that any of these record companies do. It's the same company. And I actually have a lot of friends there that really love metal and they like working with me. And so, at a certain point, it's like, what advantage, especially if you're in a band like Night Demon, who's, I guess pretty well established, like, we don't need a record company to tell people who we are anymore. I mean, that's kind of the carrot on the stick when you first sign to a label and you're a young band. You're like, you kind of want to get everything that comes with it by being in the company of these other bands, right? And a lot of times, in our case too, you'd expect, like, okay, now we're going to get all these endorsements and the label's got all these connections and we're going to get a great booking agent. And none of that stuff happened. We had to do all that on our own, and then sometimes we, for a long time, we just worked our asses off and we did 600 shows in 4 years on our own. And then people started coming to us. And, at that point, it's like, when people start coming to you, it's like, well, dude, we got tired of waiting for a fucking seat at the table. So we just built our own fucking table, and we did the same thing with the record label. So, as much as I do business with a ton of different labels and a lot of different companies, and I know all the players in the game, and I've got a lot of friends in the business, and, we're all trying to do the same thing. But at the end of the day, it's really gratifying to be able to just build your own shit and just know that no matter what, you always have a place to go if you can depend on yourself at the end of the day. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. That self-reliance and independence is super important, especially just on a more personal level and stuff. That's going to become more and more of a thing to strive for, I think. But I really admire and respect what you're doing with all that. I would love to learn myself how to do more of this stuff, because I really feel like a lot of recording contracts and publishing contracts and a lot of this stuff, I feel like it's intentionally written to confuse artists and make them just throw their hands in the air and go, you know what? This is too much shit. I'll just like pay a lawyer to look it over and then we'll just sign up with it instead of fully grasping what is going on with all of this. And I feel like that's how a lot of artists get taken for a ride.
It happens to all artists, and it's a business. And, I've always found myself most comfortable being somewhere in the middle, and that's what makes me a great band manager as well is, there's plenty of bands that have managers that got into managing bands because they could never play in a band. But the best manager of any business is a guy who's out there doing it because he or she really understands what's really at stake, when emotions are high, what the dedication that it takes for somebody to really do this stuff. So, even if you manage the McDonald's, you better know how to mop that fucking floor. You better know how to fry that bullshit in the fryer, because you got the manager needs to know how to do every job. And if when the manager wants some of your publishing, it's like, well, you better get in the practice room and write a fucking riff, because do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I treat my bands very fair, and I know what it's like when it's like some of these guys, at the end of the day, the management takes their cut, the agency takes their cut, you have to pay for the merchandise, gas is through the roof, you got to rent a van, you got to get hotels, and then it's like, then you got to split that money 5 ways. Like you can't survive, So I think more people should take inventory on their lives in general, no matter what you do, but if you're in the arts and you're making money, which you should make money, there's nothing wrong with that. I come from the punk rock scene, and that was always looked down upon, but that always came from people that weren't making any money. Your time and effort is worth something, and you should be able to make a living off it. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way to do that is to educate yourself on the ins and outs of how things work. And lawyers and contracts and big corporations, you and I are both signed to a major label now. I mean, these things they know the game. They're designed for them to win. And the guys that want to sign bands like us, they're just guys like us that love music, They're not dealing with that end of it. So I don't blame them, but we have to protect ourselves and educate ourselves and just take your time with things. If somebody wants your music, it's because there's somebody else that does too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify for people listening, when Jarvis said that both of our bands are on a major label now, it's because Century Media, our label, was bought by Sony. And Sony is one of the 4 or 5 major labels that owns practically everything at this point.
Three. Yeah, 3. There's only 3 now. There's only 3.
Yeah, they've all combined, and now they're holding hands even tighter than before.
Yeah, there's only 3, and they all own shares in Spotify. They own the majority of the shares. So for people that know that.
Yeah, that's how Spotify gets away with paying so little, is because they're like, we will pay the artist dick, and then we'll make you labels okay with it by giving you shares in the company. The labels don't give a shit that much about the artists, so,
I do believe Sony, our label, has no longer any vested interest in the company. I do believe they sold their shares, but Universal and Warner still own a big, big, big chunk of that. So, and and Neil Young's shit too. They own that, so he can go fuck off. And that's a whole nother topic. I don't know if we should get into, but I'll put it to you this way: I'm done listening to rich old white men.
Well, it's rich old white men that are way set up. They're good to go. And they preached against the stuff that now they're raging on the behalf of.
Yeah, keep rocking in the free world. Whatever, man.
Yeah, and that whole song was about talking shit about how fucked up corruption in this world is. And then
yeah, absolutely.
It's funny. It's funny.
Boggles my fucking mind. Man.
Yeah, the Neil Young thing is just like hilarious if you have 2 brain cells to rub together.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the most people that I see in the world, I just had to turn off to the whole subject because it seems like the people don't have 2 brain cells to rub together. How many people are rallying behind this? It's just like it's such a bad precedence to set for free speech in general, and it's really sad. I don't think people understand what they're doing and the damage that it can really cause them if they really get behind what they're saying. I don't think I'm hoping that they just don't understand what they're really saying.
Well, I think that's fairly clear. And the thing that really sticks with me always when people are calling for censorship, they're not realizing that once it comes to them, they're not going to be okay with it. The same censorship that people call for today is going to be flipped around and sicked on themselves later. And then they're going to be like, hey, how did this happen? Because you wanted it to happen, idiot.
Exactly. It's kind of like, for somebody to be so vocal and go out of their way to cancel anybody, they have to understand that what they're doing is putting themselves in a position where they're not going to be able to do that again, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be silenced. And it could be for any reason. I think people should be able to disagree with each other. That's okay. Like, it's okay to have different opinions about stuff. I hope we have difference of opinions forever, and me personally, look, I don't advocate for any kind of lying, but if you're gonna hold anybody accountable, start with the big corporations and start with the media and the governments, because they're the ones that are doing it the most, and there's no recourse on them. And I just think that, I do a lot of interviews, man, and there's like a lot of, especially in Germany, it's like, without Germany, I don't think my band would have a career. So I'm grateful for those guys. But a lot of press I've been doing over there lately is just, it's like this anti-fascist stuff and anti-Nazi stuff. And it's like, okay, but listen, like, I would rather know who these people are, because like, if you try and silence them, they don't just go away and go into hiding. You go, okay, you're right. They go somewhere and they stew, and then they come back with something that we don't want. So it's like,
yep.
It's okay to voice your opinions and dislikes for stuff, but you have to treat people like human beings, and you have to give people a chance to change. If you want to see some change in somebody, the best thing to do is just have a conversation with them and just see where they're coming from first. Give them the floor and give them the same respect that you want them to give you. No matter how hateful you think they might be, you might realize at the end of the day that we're not all so different from each other, and we can figure out why people feel the way they do, and maybe come at it in a bit of a different approach.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, too, that when a conversation is had, if somebody holds some very terrible ideas and is expressing them, I think it's important to attack the ideas and not the person.
Of course.
Attack the bad ideas. And like you, I am in full agreement that bad ideas should be shouted from the mountaintops. Go ahead. Let them be heard. Sing them as loud as you want, because it's an old trope at this point, but the best way to beat a bad idea is with a good idea.
Sure.
And if there's no bad ideas being vocalized because everyone's afraid to, say their thing, then, like you said, these people don't just go away. They don't just change because it's unpopular to vocalize their opinion. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Nobody's really ever canceled, man.
Yeah, I want the Nazis to be vocal. I want the KKK to be vocal, because then you know who the idiot assholes are. You know where the bad ideas are coming from. Like, okay, this guy is all fucked up in the head, so, don't associate with him. You don't want that guy to be in secret and thinking that shit, I want my idiot assholes to be right out in the open, like you.
Right. But that's what's happened. They are the secret now, and they look just like you and I, and they're heading governments and news agencies, and those guys are those people. And they won't come out and say it because of this stuff. And in order to know what a good idea is, we have to know the bad idea, or we'll never know. They're just the same idea. Right?
Yeah, we definitely think the same on that.
Okay. Cool.
And 100%. And I really love a lot of the newer Night Demon stuff, because you're speaking about a lot of things that I sing about. And I know that you guys are going to be putting out a new release. Please tell me and everybody what's going on with that, because you guys put out a bunch of stuff like peppered throughout time, but is it all coming out together?
Yeah, so in 2020, we put out 5 singles. So the idea was, pre-pandemic, we were like, okay, let's try something a little different here, because we were just writing a bunch of different, I guess stylistically, the songs that we were writing were, not very cohesive on a full length album. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's
Sure.
just, we were just kind of going, just experimenting. I mean, nothing crazy, but just, I don't know, like, we just kind of felt like we were writing, for the first time, we were writing songs just for the song. And we were really concentrating on one song at a time. It's like, hey, here's the vibe of this thing. Okay, now we're in this mode. Here's the vibe of this thing. And at the end of the day, they kind of stood on their own. So we approached the label about doing it, and that was met with quite a bit of hesitancy, and I get why. But I was like, look, man, like singles are like, they're not the future, they're kind of the now.
Yep,
because of the
I
way
agree.
that people listen to music. I said,
agree.
but we're an old school band too, and so I want to keep the old school traditions. And I explained to them, like, I'm like a big music historian, so I was like, look, singles are also the old way. Like, that's how music used to come out. It was a song, and it came out on a 7-inch vinyl, and the LP wasn't created until you had to compile these things. That's when the 33 and a third record, it was created for that reason. Like, full length records were just compilations of singles,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so we want to do what's new, and we want to do what's old as well, and we want to stick with our traditions. So what we did was, in 2020, starting in April, we released a single every 5 weeks on a 7-inch, and digitally, with like a lyric video and a behind the scenes thing of us, making the song. And we didn't do any pre-order. We didn't do any promotion for it, like, ahead of time. And we just kind of dropped them every 5 weeks. We didn't tell the fans what was coming. At some point, they were like, when the fuck is this going to end? But like, thankfully they all sold out each day they went on sale. So,
Wow.
I mean, it was cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was,
Congrats.
yeah, thanks. But yeah, I was worried at first. I was like, as soon as they agreed to do it, I was like, fuck, guys, like, we're going to be sitting on a lot of records at the end of the year, like, because, you're making 1,000 7-inches every 5 weeks or something. It's like, at a certain point, it's like somebody's going to say, like, what the fuck? But anyway, yeah, it was, we went out to do this whole experiment with all these different guys. Matt Hyde did the first song, Empire's Fall. And then we went out to Denmark and recorded with Flemming Rasmussen for the song Kill the Pain. We went to Chicago, recorded with Steve Albini to do the song Are You Out There? The fifth single is us playing a couple old 70s Scorpions covers in Germany on stage with Uli John Roth.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, it was just really cool to be able to kind of do something different. And so, obviously we had so much touring planned in 2020, and the idea was every 5 weeks when a single would come out, we would still be on tour. And it's like, hey, now we're going to put this song into the set kind of thing. But since that didn't happen, and now that we're getting back on the road, we were like, okay, well, we're not going to release another fucking record, like, while we're not able to go support it. So the label is like, hey, let's just put out a comp of all the stuff, because the B-sides on the singles were never available online. They were just on the 7-inches, and those went quick, and they went to collectors. A lot of people don't even open them and play them, so we thought it'd be good to get these songs out there. So here you go. You got 10 songs that came out in 2020. 5 of the tracks have probably not been heard by most people, and yeah, it's nice, neat package, and it's like keeps our discography clean, and fuck it, it's another thing that we want to put out and go out there and hit the road and do some stuff with before our new record comes out.
That's really cool. Sounds like you guys were on a similar wavelength to myself and my guys in my band, because we've discussed doing the same kind of thing. Like, after we're out of our deals, we've talked about doing stuff ourselves and putting out a single or 2 songs here and there just a few times a year. Instead of making people wait 3 years for 10 new songs, why don't we just put out a new song every 4 months or whatever?
Yeah, I think for Night Demon, we've always said, we have a debut EP, we have 2 full lengths, we have a live album, and then we have this comp, and we have our third studio record is coming out at the end of this year. But we never wanted to be a band that made 20 albums, and I always think the best part of a band is like the first 4 or 5 records anyway. So of every band that I love, that is absolutely the case, 100%. I've broken it down. And so I just figured, like as the band, Night Demon is like, we've only been out there since 2013. So there's still some life. There's still a lot to do here. But, it's like in your case, if you're in like, you've been in the same band your whole life, like you're going to go through a lot of stages, like you're going to have that young phase where you're just figuring it out, and like, luckily your band's got some really good shit. So there's not like none of those Havoc records are embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
there's some things that I wish were different in the past, but
of course. Yeah,
it's
they're
all
not embarrassing. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, we
like you didn't have a Korn phase,
No, we didn't have a Korn phase.
Yeah. So, but I mean, moving forward, it's like that's not a bad idea for bands like us or a band like yourself. Like, it's like if you have a strong discography, right? Like, why make another record? Like, here's a good example. The Scorpions are one of my favorite bands. I used to go see them on tour. Like every year they would tour, and they would put out a record every couple of years. And like in the 2000s, they put out like 3 or 4 albums. And I was like, like there's some fucking bangers on here. Like I wouldn't expect that this late in their career, but like there's some okay stuff. And I would listen to the whole record and be like, hey, like these guys put some fucking time and effort into this, But you'd go see them on tour. They play 2 songs off the new record and then play the hits. And they're still not playing all the hits you want to hear, like all the deep cuts from back in the day.
Right.
And then I would go see them the following year, new album, new tour, same thing would happen, right? But it's like the album that came out the year before, it's like it never existed.
Right. And you're sitting there wondering, why wouldn't you guys just make 2 songs and put those out?
You're right. Exactly. I'm like, what's wrong with putting all of your effort into 1 or 2 like amazing songs, do a great video for it, like make it the best you can, put everything you have into it into one fucking song, like in this point in your life where you're at right now, and just make it the fucking very best you can and make it a song that's going to like live forever in your catalog.
Yep.
And you can go out and play it forever. And it means just as much, if not more, than doing a record with a bunch of throwaway songs,
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast. Bands like us, we don't, in a live setting, I mean, a band like ours is never going to play like 90 minutes is a long set, like it's going to be shorter most of the time, So you only have a limited amount of time to put your shit in there, so.
Yeah. And you asked the question at the beginning of your statement there with what's wrong with doing it that way, putting out 2 amazing songs that you put all of your heart and soul into. Nothing. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I actually would prefer bands to do that kind of shit because let's be real. A band like the Scorpions, they've got easily over 100 songs, maybe a couple hundred songs to choose from to play live. Like, you guys don't need to put out 12 new songs every couple of years. Put out 1 super sick song that you turn into a single and make it a radio hit like all your old stuff. That seems like a smarter thing to do, in my opinion, just for what you're putting in versus what you get out, the return on investment.
You'll still have cover art for it. You'll still make a T-shirt out of it. Like it still makes that statement. It's on Spotify. That's all. Anybody's only going to play the single anyway. Like you'll still get playlisted. You'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what me and my guys have discussed, and we think it's probably a smart thing to do because also taking a step aside from the rock and metal world for a second. Rappers and pop artists, they do this shit all the time. Rappers will put out like 4 or 5 new singles every year, and then people are constantly listening to their new stuff. And there's always content coming out. It's always something new to get excited about, some new collaboration or whatever. I think that's a really brilliant way to do it, especially like you said, in modern times where people have a goldfish attention span. I think releasing singles is a lot more viable for getting people's attention, and it's just easier on the band too, and it makes it more creative, more fun. You can be more experimental. Look at bands like in the 70s, like David Bowie and stuff, like, hey, or Queen or whatever. Like, here's this new stuff. Oh, you don't like it? Well, just wait like 6 months. There's going to be something else coming out.
Exactly. And, I still do. I will say this. The full album format still works in metal. It's the only genre that it does still work in. So, it's not dead. But if you don't need to do it, don't. Because you're ruining your brand by doing that. And like you said, it's like put the time and energy into 1 or 2 great songs instead of a half effort into 10 songs.
Yep. And we've discussed doing something that's much like what you guys are going to be putting out here. We drop some singles.
Well, I think you should.
Drop some singles here and there, bop, 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 bop. And then once there's enough to press it onto a physical version, we'll spend our own money and do it that way. This is what we've discussed doing in the future. But we still have one more record with Century Media, and we've talked about doing some cover songs. So that may be the way. And what we want to do is cover a bunch of shit that people wouldn't expect us to cover, stuff that's not really metal, and then metalize it and put that out as a full length.
You should. I mean, this compilation that we have coming out, it's 60% covers. So Sony's the label to do it. They can afford the licensing and they can get in touch. I mean, there's a live version of Iron Maiden's Wasted Years on there, and they contacted Maiden, and Maiden's like, okay, they listened to it and they're like, yeah, okay, that's cool. If I were to do that, hey, Rod Smallwood, it's like, I don't know if I'd get a reply, so.
Yeah, dude, that Maiden cover is sick as fuck. You guys did a great job on that. Where was that recorded?
Thank you. That was at the Beachland Ballroom in Cleveland, Ohio.
All right. It came out amazing. That's a really, really good cover.
Yeah, thanks. The energy was definitely there tonight. They set an attendance record there by overselling the venue. It was good. I'm glad that we hung on to that,
Yeah, did a killer job. How did you guys track it? It sounded like it was multi-tracked and then remixed later.
Yeah, so we did a live album there in we recorded it December of 2017. It was called Live Darkness, and that came out in August of 2018. It was a 3 vinyl triple live album. It's a 90-minute show. And we told our fans about it ahead of time, like, hey, look, we're doing this taping for a live record, and we're doing it for a charity event for a homeless food drive. And everybody bought tickets, and I think there was 700 or 800 people there.
Hell
and
yeah.
People flew in from all over the world because it's like, hey, get to be on the Night Demon live album. And so we had, we only had one shot at this. Most bands get to record a live album over a whole tour or maybe multiple nights at the same venue. So we set up multi-track stuff, and we set up a lot of mics in the room. We really wanted to capture the audience.
Smart.
And and so what we did was we actually recorded the sound check. We sound checked the whole show. And then when it came time for showtime, we obviously recorded the show. And so thank God we did that, because there were, as with every concert, when you're fucking running around on stage, shit happens, cords get pulled out, mics go bad. Yeah. And so we did have to sub out a couple parts. And that's when it's like, great, we don't have to go in the studio and re-record this fucking album. It's like, you don't want to do that, but the lot was on the line. So we did, there was a song, the song Screams of the Night. We did have to start over because the guitar just cut out during the guitar solo. And we're like, no, but we told the audience what was up. And that year I had seen the Misfits reunion shows. Yeah. And they did this thing where they wouldn't allow phones into the arena, and you had to put your phone in this little foam wetsuit neoprene case, and so you got to have your phone on you, and if you needed to use it, you could go outside and they would unlock the phone and you can use it, right? And so we implemented the same rules at our show here because it was for a live album. And so we didn't allow any phones, any photography, any cameras, anything. Some people bitched, but fuck it, whatever. It's like, these are the rules. And it actually made for a much better show. You can hear the audience having a much better time because they're totally engaged with what we're doing. There's no distractions, right?
Yep.
But I mean, we hired our own photo crew. We had about 4 or 5 pro photographers that we knew that we hired. We had a 12 camera video on there. There's never been any video released of this show. And, we have this stuff. It's like, it's not that we didn't have that end covered. We didn't need people to throw it up on YouTube. You know, the album came in at like number 40 on the German charts on its debut, and that might not have happened if people saw the fucking show 8 months prior online, a shitty version of it, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's really cool that you guys implemented that rule. I know Dave Chappelle, Joe Rogan, some of these dudes do that stuff too.
Cancel!
They're taking people's cell phones away so that they can't get canceled and they can actually speak freely.
I don't like what they are saying. And so I think that they should not say anything again. They should have no platform to talk because I'm offended. Okay? It offends me. And nobody has a right to offend me with their opinion, especially when they're not even talking to me directly. You're out of here.
You just summed up a lot of people's attitudes here in 2022.
I can't believe we're in 2022, man. Like it's like we're already here, man. It's just it's a crazy world, man. I try and stay positive, to be honest with you. Even on social media now, like I've got blockers on my Facebook and stuff. Like I can't even see the news feed anymore. Like, cause I'm just like, nope. Instead, I just get like a motivational quote and I'm like, I'm here to use this as a tool. I can't get into this shit anymore because I want to keep my friends. I want to be friends with everybody and I want them to have their own opinion and I'm okay with that stuff. But it really just, the stuff is like it can really poison your mind, man. You know, just I'm not saying I'm blind to things, and I'm just going to be unaware. But I want to be in control of my time and my mind. And when I want to go look for this stuff, I'm going to go look for it. But the thing is, with the culture today, people look online for something and then when they don't find the answer that they want, they'll keep searching till they find it and it's there. And it's like, I don't even know where to look anymore for news. So I like to stay involved with the people that I'm directly surrounded with. I go out into the community a lot. I go and talk to people. I go and hang out places. I go to shows all the time. I go socialize with people. And I've noticed that when you actually get out into the world, there's none of this bullshit. Nobody fucking argues like this face to face ever. It doesn't happen. If it does, it's usually over too many drinks and because of something that they're saw online a minute ago, you know?
Yeah, the online thing, the lack of real human interaction where there's a threat of things escalating to you getting punched in the face or something really is a new phenomenon. The internet
crazy.
And everyone getting to voice their bullshit and really say some crazy, like, not cool things to each other is very new. It's a new precedent that we're living through, and it's really amazing to witness. We're living through a really interesting time where you and I are some of the last people in our generation, especially being from the Western world in the U.S., that remembers life pre-internet. I think that gives us a special perspective that most people don't have, especially people younger than us.
Yeah, I can't even relate, you know. I was just talking about this last night to somebody. Funny enough that you said that, but yeah, I'm really grateful to have that. And anybody that's lived in both eras, I think it's important to know. Please always keep in touch with your old self because it's very easy to adapt to what's happening and you will lose your focus and attention with what's happening. It will go away. But just remember, you know, there's so many brilliant things about modern convenience. I'm in Ireland right now. You're in Colorado. We're talking to each other on the phone and recording it for the world, you know?
It's amazing.
And you know, I also appreciate not spending 10 days every day going, who was the guy in the movie with the mustache when the car flipped over? What was that? You know, like, and asking all my friends, you know, but now I could literally just Google that phrase and I actually might get the answer, you know? So, so I love modern conveniences, but you know, everybody just remember, just read a fucking book, you know, pick up a book, read a book. There's so much scientific stuff now that everybody's a scientist, right? So there's so much science-based evidence out there about the healthy things of the old world that really keep you alive and living and sharp And it's not about big pharma drugs. It's not about street drugs. It's not about, you know, blue light, red light, blue blocker. I mean, I guess that stuff helps if you're a biohacker guy. But, you know, I mean, I do things for my health all the time. I try and drink less. I did a 5-day fast last week. I didn't eat for 5 fucking days.
Dude, that's a
it's
long
hard.
time. I did a 3-day fast once, but not 5. Jesus.
Well, listen, 3 days is great. Like anything over 72 hours post autophagy, like, you know, your body actually heals itself,
Yep.
you know, and you can survive. You can easily survive that long without food, and you're actually not hungry. It's, you know, but I'm saying there's a lot of things we can do right now as humans, and the information is there, you know, to make ourselves human again, you know, and like be able to go off and fight anything that's out there, because more than COVID, I mean, there's tons of other shit in the world, man. Like,
No,
like,
there's a lot of stuff to actually be way more concerned with.
yeah. And I can't remember a tour that I've ever been on where I wasn't fucking sick at one point, you know, like,
right.
So it's something, it's always something, but you know, I have a strong immune system because of that. You know, I get around and I get out there and I let my body do what it's naturally here to do, man. And I try not to fill it with crap and preservatives and all stuff that's not really food, you know? So I think a lot of people should really look at what money is going behind all of the stuff that you're hearing and reading. And instead of jumping on your neighbor for asking questions, you should say, hey, you know, nobody's promoting eating healthy. Nobody's trying to take down the companies that are not regulated, that are serving you stuff that's not actually food. And, you know, nobody's talking about that stuff. And I think that we should be telling people about that. We should be at least telling the people we care about that stuff, you know. But it's everybody's looking for the treatment and not the cure, you know. And the cure always starts within. You know, nobody's going to do anything for you. Just kind of like a record company, you know. It's like, or your career. It's like you got to be fucking tough and you got to be motivated to do stuff for yourself.
For sure. And I think one of the natural things that's free that everyone, well, most people can do, that's really good for you, is go walk in the fucking woods. Reconnect with your base humanity and clear your head. And yeah, it's not about blue lights and red lights and GMOs and chemtrails. It's about clearing your head and staring at a fucking tree.
Yeah, you know, not to sound like a fucking crystal Twinkie or anything, but I've been or a fucking dirty hippie, you know. I'm still a metalhead, but I've been meditating for years. But I was trained in transcendental meditation, and I do that 20 minutes twice a day for the last 2 years. And to be honest, it's enhanced my creativity tenfold. It's totally changed the way I react to things, you know, and I'm a lot more mellow now, and I'm a lot more calm. I'm a lot less stressed for a guy who has a pretty stressful lifestyle. You know, there's a lot of things that I have to deal with on a daily basis, but it's really helped a lot, and it's a good introspective way to just quiet your mind and do nothing. And especially for people that are always on the social media news feed, you know, that they're on the slot machine all day. Really just try it sometimes. And you know, it's something that takes practice, but sometimes just my advice would just be to, if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, just try to do nothing. You know, just try to do nothing. Like, don't watch TV. Don't distract yourself with some bullshit. Like, just try and sit there with yourself sometimes with your own thoughts, and just that's it, you know? And if you want to close your eyes, even better.
I did a whole lot of nothing. A couple weeks ago, I went into an isolation, like, float tank for the first time.
Those are brilliant.
It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was very peaceful, obviously. There's nothing going on. And the thing that I really dug about it that you can't get with just normal meditation is the fact that you were floating. You don't get that in the ocean. You don't get that in a pool. You don't get that when you're laying in bed. You had the sensation of, you know, no pressure on your spine, no pressure on any part of your body. It was really cool. That's a special thing. I mean, they fill up that tub with 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt to make you float like that.
Yeah, just totally buoyant. Were you in complete darkness?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you were in so it was it a sensory deprivation chamber? Is that what they would call that?
Yeah. It was a
That's fucking
float tank,
amazing.
but sensory deprivation. So there was no light. The water was about like skin temperature, and so was the air inside. So you didn't get cold, you weren't hot. It was just as minimal outside stimulus as possible.
Yeah, that's fucking incredible.
It was really
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, you should go do it sometime, especially if you're into meditating. I think you would really get a kick out of doing that because it was a special sensation.
That's one of those things. Yeah, that's always been on my list of things. You know, I will definitely be doing that. I've done some stuff similar to that, but I haven't done I haven't been in the chamber, the darkness. You know, they do. I did go to a float center once that they have that, but you know, it was just aromatherapy candles and some music. You know,
Sure, yeah. They offered to have some ambient meditation kind of music, just droney, Brian Eno kind of stuff.
Right.
And they asked me, "Do you want the music or no?" I was like, "No," because I want the full experience, being left alone and with my own mind, total darkness, silence.
Nice.
And it was
Nice.
cool. It was really cool. I think you would really love it, especially being the expert meditator that you are.
Well, it's a practice, man. Like I said, you never perfect it. You just get better. And some days are different than others, you know? So it's one of the most important things in my life now. It's one of, you wouldn't leave the house without clothes. It's that important to me. I feel like you got to be primed. You got to prime your mind before you head out into this fucking crazy world.
How would you accomplish that if you were on tour?
I would just do it. I found myself in situations where I've had to do it in crazy situations, you know? I mean, you just do it. You just do it. I've done it in a car. I've done it in a parking lot. I've done it on a train when I have had to. I've done it on planes. But, you know, if you could try and find a quiet place and try and be as comfortable as you can, that's the key. And try not to be tense. Just be comfortable. And, you kind of have a mantra that you say to yourself over and over again. Your mind starts to wander. It's like dreaming. And what I find too is you're really awake and alert after the fact. It's like taking a power nap, but you're not fully asleep, but it's like dreaming in the sense that your mind, it's like a David Lynch movie, like it's like sometimes you just think of weird shit and you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Or like, why is the cow talking to me? I don't know. But sometimes the cow will give you some fucking lyrics, or I don't know. I can't explain it, but
yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. I need to try getting into that. I love walking in the woods. That's one of my favorite things, and I consider it a form of active meditation. And I feel like there's many forms of active meditation: painting, drawing, even like cooking, doing dishes. These are things where your mind can just wander, and you're not really terribly focused on outside stimuli. You're just doing kind of a droney robot activity. But it is calming.
Walking is one of the best things,
Walking outside, yes.
Yeah, walking outside in the fresh air. But you also, it does something to your senses, and you actually notice things a lot more. It's really, really good for comprehensive thinking or learning. Like if you're reading a book and you really want to learn what's in the book, always be moving. Don't be sitting down doing it. Your brain accepts it in a much different way. There's a guy named Jim Quick who's written a lot of books about this and how to read faster and how to retain the knowledge and stuff. So I recommend that to any of your listeners if they're interested in retaining stuff. Any of you readers out there.
Jim Quick?
Yep.
Cool. I'm going to look him up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You guys have a song called Vesteria. And is Vesteria a term that you guys whipped up for the song, or is it a real thing? Okay.
Yeah, no, we created it. I think actually Urban Dictionary went with it after our song came out and said, okay, well, here's a new word. So it's a viral hysteria is kind of the way we thought it. And so we wrote this song in March of 2020 when we kind of saw what was going to happen here. And Night Demon has never written a politically charged song ever in our career. We were just not that kind of band. And we just kind of decided, well, this is a pretty interesting thing that is happening. And so right when the first thing was headed for lockdown, right when we were trying to flatten the curve in the first 2 weeks, when we had the 2-week lockdown, right, and then we were supposed to be all fine, we wrote this song right away. I mean, we were seeing stuff on the news that said literally, like, I saw things that said like no hope things like this. And we were just like, whoa, hold the fuck on. We kind of just wanted to write a song about the influence of the media and information. In no way were we any kind of COVID deniers or anything like this. This was well before the vaccine was even really talked about when we wrote this. But yeah, this song ended up coming out in July of 2020. So just to give you some perspective on the timeline. Okay. So we wrote it in March. We obviously had to record it and press it on vinyl. So it came out in July. Did it come out on July 4th? I can't remember. That would have been perfect. But yeah, the cover art depicts a doctor pulling his skin off his face in a mad panic, like he's got this deadly virus. And you've also got some military men on there with assault rifles and gas masks, and you got politicians holding stacks of cash. And for us, it's like we just kind of saw the writing on the wall, and we're like, wow, this is really cool. We could finally write a political song in this band, because we just knew, we're like, this is going to be something big. We've never thought we'd see something like this in our lifetime. This is going to be something this is going to blow up in everybody's face. We didn't think it would divide the people as much as it did. And that's where my heart really breaks, but we're like, oh man, this is crazy. We're going to finally, some of this corruption is going to be exposed. And it's because of something like this.
And it kind of went the other way. The corruption got exposed, but a lot of people put the blinders on.
Yeah, but here's the way I look at it, David. You got to give historical events some time. You got to let it be history, So it takes a lot of bravery to go against the grain when things are happening. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. It's hard. It's our natural human instinct to want to be accepted. We have this sense of tribalism, and it feels good to be a part of a group. It feels good to be accepted by your friends and your family. And you want people to respect you. And when you're out there in the public eye and people are listening to what you're saying, you're an influencer in a way. You always want to be careful about the things you talk about, because you want to be somebody that anybody can appreciate. You don't want to be too strong. I'm not for extremism at all. I'll just say that, of any kind. I'm not left or right. If there's a left and right, then there's a middle, and that's where you'll find me. But I do believe in the truth, and I do believe that people should speak out against big corporate scare tactics, and we just need to be smarter as a society. And I think if somebody had to go out there and just do their small part and defend the rights of people, and we could do ours, that's what this statement is. That's all it is. It's not COVID denying. It's nothing like that. It's not QAnon. I don't even know what that shit is. But I do know when we're being taken for a ride.
Yeah, you and I both. And our last record, V, came out on May 1st, 2020. And so many people were convinced that the song lyrical themes on that record were all about COVID. And it was funny to
pre-COVID.
We wrote and recorded all of this. It was all finished in the bag by September of 2019. So, it just sadly happened that a lot of these lyrics happened to map onto reality a little too closely in 2020.
Well, I think it's very prophetic in a way, but here's the problem. I think the Hollywood movies are so good now that when the shit actually happens in real life, nobody can believe it's actually happening. It's so hard to believe. It's my thing is just this. I advise everybody to strongly just always look at every situation as there's not one narrative, okay? There's many narratives. Yes, okay, if there's a deadly virus and people are dying, that sucks. Yeah, we need to figure that out, okay? But it's not just about that. It's about a lot of things.
There was a lot of people that took advantage of this, yeah.
Yes, you can't turn a blind eye to the other things. There's multiple narratives here. You have to look ahead a little bit before you just start giving stuff away,
100%. That reminds me of a lyric that I wrote down from Vesteria. There's a part where you say, destroy the fear inside. It's only then you realize your freedom dies.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when I say the word freedom, everybody thinks I'm some fucking redneck, which, by the way, just because, you know, somebody has an accent from the South doesn't make them uneducated. That's just some stereotype. But, you know, when now the word freedom has been now linked to white supremacy,
Yeah, it's hilarious.
or the Confederacy or something, you know? And it's like, yeah, I don't get it, man. I'm just trying to look for another a synonym for freedom. You know, I just like, it's the minute you say that though, it's like, I might as well be fucking Garth Brooks or something, you know. It's like, I just don't understand. And I don't think anybody, again, I'm not faulting anybody. I think we're all just victims of this false narrative, you know, and not looking at, yeah. So I don't want to personally blame anybody because I don't want to cancel anybody, just as like I don't want anybody to cancel anybody else. So the people that are acting uninformed right now and are being very extreme about it, you know, it's like I come from the punk and metal underground. I've never seen more just complete 180 shit. Now it's like, what? Now it's just like, listen to the man, and it's like, please, if you have a difference of opinion against this stuff, you're just blackballed. And, you know, I'm very careful with that stuff. But also, just like I don't want anybody else to be canceled, I will give everybody in the world the benefit of the doubt here. And I'll give everybody a second and third chance because I would want one too. And I just know at the end of the day, we're going to know a lot more about this kind of stuff. And I feel the same way that I felt when it started. And look, I'm vaccinated and I didn't do it out of fear. I kind of got coerced into it, you know, like I wanted to travel the world. And so I had to do it, but obviously that wasn't enough. And now they want more. So I don't know. We'll see. But I am all about bodily autonomy and freedom of speech. I mean, if you don't have that, you have nothing. So I think it should be everybody's choice of what they do with their body. And, you know, if you don't want to go outside because you're afraid, then you don't have to. But it's not anybody else's right to keep you safe. That's completely wrong. And I think that's the wrong stance that a lot of people are taking right now. What about my safety? Well, that's your responsibility, not mine.
Yep, that's correct. I mean, if you're really worried about safety, you should never drive a car again.
Yeah.
You should not eat any fast food. You should grow all your own vegetables so you can make sure there's no pesticides sprayed on them. Like, where do you draw the line here?
Exactly.
Are you just biting a narrative, or do you actually care about your safety as much as you proclaim to? It's really interesting, but that song really struck a chord with me when it came out. I remember seeing the video, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And the thing is, in my opinion, this is just my take on it, to me, it's not political. To me, it's apolitical. You're not saying, hey, vote for Democrats. Hey, vote for partisan politicians, you know? You're kind of spitting venom at the whole system, which to me is not political. It's apolitical, because to me, politics is trying to get someone to think one way or the other. Sure. You're kind of calling out the whole thing, and I do that too. So I saw a lot of me in that song.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. And like, as you know, though, many people, I mean, it's a goddamn lyric video too. The lyrics are right there. Many people don't read the lyrics. They form their own opinion in the first 5 seconds, and they have a platform now where they could say something, you know? Mm-hmm. But the last time somebody said, hey, you want to take a step outside? It was like 18 years ago in my life. But now every day it seems like online somebody wants to say, hey, you want to take a step into the metaverse so I can kick your ass? You know, it's like you wouldn't really say that to me. You would never say it to me because you would lose.
Yeah, it's a strange world we're definitely coming into right now, which is really interesting. It's already weird, but I think about often, what's this going to look like in 10 years, in 20 years? It's going to be so fucked in such a sci-fi, dystopian, just detached from reality kind of a world, I think.
Yeah, you know, I mean, look, I'm 41 years old now, and I'm really looking forward to the back half of my life just because I know who I am, and I know I love playing music, and I'm going to keep playing through a fucking Marshall tube amp, and I'm going to stay me, I'm going to stay my way, and I've been fortunate enough to be involved in some things that have a legacy in the books of heavy metal that aren't going anywhere, you know, and from here, all I can do is just move forward and add to that and just, enjoy my life.
Enjoy it while you can. Yeah, we could go at any moment. I say it all the time, you know. I really do think that happiness is a choice, and I think that gratitude equates to happiness. Gratitude and happiness go hand in hand. So there's only
Absolutely.
You got to take inventory of the things that we can control and the things we cannot. The shit we can't, let it go.
And there's a ton of fucking things to be grateful for, man, when you really break it down. I mean, just waking up in the morning. There's 100,000 people didn't today, you know?
Yep. You are correct, sir. Yeah, it's really about perspective. Your life is as good or as bad as you want it to be.
Sure.
You can better your situation, you can make it worse, and 99%... There's a great Suicidal Tendencies lyric in the song Gotta Kill Captain Stupid, where he says, 99% of it's what you make of it. So if your life sucks, you suck.
Yes, absolutely.
That pretty much sums it up. I want to ask you, too, about your Flying V bass. What kind of a bass is that thing? It looks like an old Gibson 67 Flying V for people that can't see it right now.
Yeah, so it's actually... I used to play these Flying V basses made in Japan by this company called Vantage. It was like an old company. It's basically like a Hondo, like for you pawn shop guitar players, right? It's like just a really cheap guitar. And they made these Flying V basses in 1981, which is actually the year that I was born. And the year Metallica formed, you know, like it was just a magical year. So for me, at least. And I found one online and I really liked it back in the day. And it had, what I liked about it is I was always a Fender P bass player. And these Flying V basses, they had a P bass pickup in it, and not like a split pickup, which I just don't. That's just not my sound for bass. It's just I play too aggressively and it doesn't sound good, you know. So, and it had a slightly it had a medium scale, so it wasn't as long, so you could really fucking rock on this thing. And so anyway, I started playing that bass, and I started collecting those basses whenever I could find them. So like I found some that were $500 on eBay. I'd buy them. I have some that I bought for like $10. Like,
wow.
But I started just collecting them. I was a real fan of that bass and that model. They're extremely rare, but they're not sought after, you know, but it's kind of like, it's my look, it's my style. And it's cool to be, you know, playing in metal and have your signature thing that nobody has, you know? So what happened was you know, these things are pretty old and just touring so much. And I was kind of like going through them. And this company from Italy called Jailbreak hit me up and they're like, hey, you know, we want to make a signature guitar for you. And I was like, okay, let me send you, I sent them like a couple of my Flying V Vantage basses and I said, okay, so, you know, I basically want the exact same thing here, but like instead of a set neck, I want like a neck through body, and like I want these kind of tuners, I want this kind of bridge profile, I want the knob as far away as it could go, because I sweat a lot. So my tech usually puts silicone in all the gaps of the bass, and I just, instead of a volume knob, I used to have just an on-off switch, but it was actually there was a power switch for a speedboat, because you couldn't get water in it. It was just, my basses were just getting fucked, you know? So, I mean, we were trying everything, man. I had to use all stainless steel, you know? It's just crazy. But anyway, so yeah, this guy just started, I mean, he just knocked it out of the park, and I was able to like, you know, he put like our band logo like in the inlays and, you know, just cool shit. I've got the Luminlay stuff. Have you tried that before? Luminlay?
Is that the glow in the dark stuff?
Yeah, it's fucking incredible, dude, because it's not the kind where like you have actual LEDs on the top, but like it's just glow in the dark, and like you just hit it with the fucking flashlight before you go on stage, and it's like, man, this is fucking badass, because as you know, playing on a dark stage is the way to do it, but seeing when you need to is also very important.
Yeah.
so you can actually look down, because you and I sing while we play, which is a whole nother fucking challenge. But like, you know, you can actually, sometimes you're singing and you actually have to look down while you're singing, you know? And like, if you could just see that light where that, you know where that fret is, it's like, okay, you just kind of, all right, I know where I am, you know?
Yeah. I've got those inlays on a couple of my guitars, and there was sometimes too where I forgot to charge them up before going on stage, but then the lights from the stage, after a couple songs, kind of brighten them up and activate them, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, that's nice. I can see again.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, totally. Yeah, actually, there's a white one that that he just made that is actually supposed to show up here, I think, today. So
Oh, awesome.
I'm looking forward to playing that. And there's going to be a production model next year. I think they're making like 15 of them for the public. So
Cool.
I'm hoping to make them affordable. You know, I mean, that's kind of the goal. Affordable, but not shitty. Like, I want people to be able to play them, you know,
Yeah.
and like be proud to play them, you know, like some of these signature models from these guitar companies. It's like, you know, the Epiphone. The Epiphones are pretty good these days, but like sometimes you get them and you're like, I want to play what the guy's using. Like, I don't want just something that looks like it. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the story with that.
That's cool. You're going to have to send me a photo of that when you get that thing in. Hopefully it shows up today.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah. Well, what day is this new release coming out?
March 25th. Yeah, that's it. Year of the Demon. It's the 2020 singles collection. I always thought that kind of sounded cool too. Like, you know, I was always a fan. Like, you know, when the Cult put out like their singles, you know, it's like, hey, the singles collection or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, it's legit. You know, just the things you can do in a band as you get older and meeting your heroes and playing with them. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's really bad. But just. I'm sure you know. Oh, actually, I know you know all about that. I've read about that in the press. By the way, like without naming any names, that really broke my heart years ago when I read that because I was like, I felt so bad for you guys, and I'm like, what a fucking shitty, what a horrible situation. It's like, what are you supposed to do in that situation? And it's like you got basically you're looking at the guy who's the reason why you do this. And then you're getting taken for a fucking ride. And then you're still thinking about, we still have a career that we need to keep for the rest of our lives. Like we spent years, our whole lives building this. We still need to move forward. What do you do in a situation like that? You know, like it's so fucked. And it's something that it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare to be in.
You know, at the end of the day, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I would have taken it a lot harder if we would have never gotten to tour with Megadeth, but we had already toured with them. So when this whole thing went down, they were like, "We're taking away the tour." I was like, "Whatever, fuck you. We already did it." So,
right.
and you know, the whole thing was kind of like what you just said. We built up this whole thing, and we were not interested in being taken for a ride. We took too long, too much blood, sweat, and tears into this thing to just have someone come and steamroll us. So we were not going to put up with that.
I'll just say this. I'm glad it went public because that worked out better in your favor because in the industry, it's a small world, man. And all it takes is like the main guy who has all the influence to go, these guys, fuck them. And nobody will fucking want to work with you because they don't want to piss off the guy, you know? Yep. And so I'm glad that it didn't happen. And that's what I'm saying. And it's a nightmare situation because it's like the dude who got you there, one of the biggest reasons you're doing this, you know? It's just, I always think about stuff like that. And when I deal with young bands and like we take bands on tour, I'm always super conscious to go, man, I was in that position. And I'm going to be fucking cool to these guys. And I'm not going to treat them like shit. I'm not going to fucking big time them ever. I'm just going to be like, you have to respect everybody has the courage to go out there and do this stuff, man. I mean, you know, we're the first responders, baby. We're the heroes. I'm not downplaying that. Okay. I'm not. But listen, it takes a lot of fucking courage to go out there and do this kind of stuff and to do what we do, you know, and to put it all on the line. It's tiring. And it's like, there's no rock star pension. There's no future in it besides what we build for ourselves, you know, and there's no guarantees. So I commend everybody out there in any kind of art that's taking it seriously enough to go out there and do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Yeah. And a special extra amount of admiration and respect from me to the people that stick with it, because you're right, it takes a lot of courage to go out there and do it, but it takes a way bigger set of balls to get kicked in the face so many times and then keep going back for more and scratching and biting and clawing your way to get into a position where you're better off. That takes a very special breed.
Longevity is the key to any success. You know, I mean, Abraham Lincoln, I think he lost election 9 times before he lost election as a fucking like dog catcher or something. You have to stay in the game or else you have no chance. Look at a band like Clutch. They're one of the biggest bands now. They were just plodding along for 2.5 decades, putting out a ton of records. A lot of their old records are still owned by majors, but they're like, fuck it. Now they have their own label. Their last 3 records they put out on their own, they're fucking doing great. Like they kept going with it, and that's the thing. It's just, you got to stay in the game. You never know when it's going to happen. There's some old saying, I don't know how it goes, so I'm going to misquote it, but it's basically a guy bought a field that he thought there was gold in, and he dug a bunch of 3-foot holes all around the fucking field and said there's no gold and sold it. And the next guy dug 3.5 feet and fucking hit it, That's
right. It's persistence pays.
Right. Absolutely.
Easy to remember. It's got some nice alliteration. Persistence pays. Easy rules for success, I think.
Yeah, dog.
Yeah, keep it up, dude. I'm really stoked on what you guys are doing and the music you're putting out and the message that you're putting out, and I just love it. I love old school heavy metal. I love fast, tight, and heavy, and that's what you guys do.
Yeah, we got to do something on the road one of these days. It's yet to happen, but I
would
hope
love
it
that.
Does, Yeah, it would be great, man.
Yeah, I will definitely keep that in mind. So
Cool.
You're living in Northern Ireland. What about the other guys?
Yeah, so Armand, our guitar player, is still in Ventura, California. That's where the band's from. And Dusty, our drummer, is living in Pennsylvania. So I'm going to fly back to California next week. We're going to get together and rehearse, finish up some vocals for the new record that's coming out at the end of the year. We've got a Year of the Demon release show in mid-April. We're putting out a beer that day called Beer of the Demon.
Awesome.
That will be coming out. It's like an English-style ale. And so we'll be doing that in Oxnard, California, and then we'll be playing Hell's Heroes Festival in Houston on April 22nd. And then we hit the road with Midnight for a month in Europe, May and June. We've got a ton of summer festivals. We're going to Mexico. We've got a U.S. tour yet to be announced. That's going to happen in the fall. We've got more festivals in Europe. We've got about 100 gigs this year coming up. So
hell yeah, that's rad. You guys are hitting it hard.
Yeah, restrictions have been dropped, man, like in a lot of places. So even in Europe, it's crazy. Even in the Netherlands, man, after all that rioting, there is like zero check now. They're not checking for anything.
Maybe the rioting helped.
Yeah, you never know. You would hope so.
You guys are playing a festival in Northern Ireland called Frost and Fireland Festival.
Yeah, I'm actually putting that on. Yeah.
Okay, so, I was curious about that because a lot of the bands that are on your label are playing.
Yeah. It's so there's a festival called Frost and Fire that we started that we've been doing since 2015. We have editions in California and in London. And this year we wanted to bring it to Northern Ireland. I mean, I've been living out here up in the city of Derry, and it's a lot of great history here. It's the oldest walled city in Europe that still has the original walls.
Wow.
There's cannons on it and shit. It's insane. It's a great place for metal. And with Frost and Fire, we usually try and do it in places that are away from major cities, so the metalheads can come in here and dominate and not just feel like another freak on the street, just a face in the crowd. Even in London, we do it in Camden, which is the more kind of tight-knit, cooler underground area. So we're putting that on. It's June 17th and 18th, and that's going to be really cool. IronGripHeavyMetal.com. You can get tickets for that. And yeah, like I said, ton of stuff. NightDemon.net is where to go if you want to find out anything about Night Demon. It's got links to all the shit. And yeah, we like to stay busy as a band. We do this full time. Check out the podcast. It comes out every week. And if anything, we get a lot of feedback from people that listen to the podcast that were never even into the band. I mean, obviously our hardcore fans love it, but people like it because it's a great story about a real band in this era that really does it for a living, and the sacrifices that it takes and all the cool stories that come along with all the drawbacks. There's always something good that comes out of it. And like you said, gratitude is good, and it's all about how you look at things.
Yes, absolutely. I want to ask you one last question. This is a question I ask all the guests that are on the podcast. If you could give one piece of advice to future generations, what would you want to tell them?
Go sing it. No, sorry. That was if for any of you who've seen Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica, that's I wouldn't ask you to do a drum roll if your arm fell off. Yeah.
You want to hear that song with vocals? Go sing it.
Go, yeah, go sing it. So, no. Look, it's very simple. What I would say, and I've said this many times before in a lot of interviews. Whenever you always get those written interviews, right, where they're like, "Any last words?" Right?
Yeah.
You're asking me a specific question, and this is the same thing that I always say, and it goes a little bit back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. But I think it's very important for everybody in their life to really take some time and to start thinking for themselves, not about anything else around them or anybody else. Okay. Think for yourself about yourself and find out what you're passionate about. We're all passionate about something, and you don't have to know right now what it is that you want to do. But as long as you are thinking about it and you're in the process of trying to discover that, you're going to be okay. I think that everybody needs to follow their passion. If you like sweeping the street, go buy the best fucking broom you can find and sweep your ass off and be the best at it. Life is so fucking precious and it's so short. And you know what? Eventually, all this is going to turn to dust and nobody's even going to remember any of this shit. Okay? So we need to be happy, and we're only happy when we're doing the things that resonate with us and that we love. We're all here for a purpose. We just need to do the work to discover what that purpose is. And once you have that, you're going to be just fine. Don't be afraid to quit your life, okay? Don't be afraid to quit anything. If you're in a bad relationship, if you have a shitty job, fucking run out of it like it's a fucking burning building. It takes a lot of courage, but you will be fine, and you will thank yourself for it later. I absolutely promise. Just do it. Nothing bad is going to happen. Only good things will happen to you. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose.
Hell yeah. Follow the passion. Doing what makes you happy is really important because, as you said, life is super short. I love what you just said, and I think people are going to dig it as well.
Most people, let me just close with this. Most people on their deathbeds that know they're dying, they never talk about their regrets about, I wish I never would have done this or that. They always talk about the things that they wish they would have done.
You're right.
So go do those things.
Hell yeah. That's a great way to leave this thing. Thanks a lot for taking the time, Jarvis. I really appreciate it, bro.
Thank you, brother.
You made it to the end. You kept up the good work. Now go out into the world and keep it up, man. Oh, keep it going. Keep it going for this listener right here. Come on, folks. Give it up. Give it up. I sincerely thank you for making it all the way to the end. You guys are awesome. Thanks a lot for checking it out. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to listen to that Night Demon stuff and go pick it up if you feel so inclined. Today, I just saw that Jarvis put up a video on his Instagram of his new Jailbreak Flying V bass. And it looks awesome. So go peep that. Follow him on Instagram. If you guys have any questions or comments for the show, please feel free to send them in. podcast@riffsordie.com. That's the place. Don't forget riffsordie.com and patreon.com/riffsordie if you want to support the podcast financially. And if you don't have any finances, but you enjoy the show, please share it with your friends and family and give the show a rating on whatever app you are using to listen to it. And if you're listening to it directly on the Riffs or Die website, well, gosh bless you. Gosh darn it, that's just so dang neat, you know? Anyway, that's it from me today. I'll talk to you all again later on this week. Until then, take her real easy. Talk to you soon, Riffers. Bye-bye.